I'm Joni Parsons. I'm founder of Rebel 11, and we're so happy that you're here today. I am so excited to welcome Courtney Carver to Rebel 11. And over the past decade, Courtney's life has really been a living experiment in simplicity, from shedding excess belongings to quieting noise and resting, which we're going to dive into. Her new book, Gentle, is just fabulous. She offers a heartfelt permission slips to honor our limits, listen to our bodies, and practice kindness towards our own restless minds. As someone who has felt the tug of overwhelm for years and years, we will explore the small, compassionate shifts that we can take to transform our sense of purpose and kindness towards ourselves. Courtney is the founder and creator of Be More with Less, and the Simplicity Space, that is a membership community celebrating people as they simplify their lives. Doesn't that sound terrific? She's the co-host of Soul and Wit podcast and is the best-selling author of Soulful Simplicity and Project 333. She's been featured on Good Morning America, the New York Times, and Oprah Magazine. Courtney, welcome. We're so thrilled to have you today.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here.
So before we get started, everyone, we would love to have you answer this question in the chat. Why did you decide to join our gentle conversation today? So if you would put in the chat, why did you join us today? We'd love to understand what it is that's on your mind. I'm so burned out that it's causing some serious health issues. Okay, Laura, we'll be talking about that. Working on self-compassion, learning self-compassion. Always like hearing more ideas about simplicity. Me too. I need realistic ways to be kind to myself.
I
These are
love
all
that.
so beautiful. Pardon?
I love that. Like looking for actual steps to be kind to ourselves because I think we hear that advice often, but then it's like, but how? Tell me.
How do we do this? And we
Yeah.
wanted today to be a workshop so that you have tools to take with you after this, because I personally feel that this is such an important conversation and the interest in this event has been huge. And so, Courtney, if you would start by telling us why this book right now.
I don't know if there would have been a bad time for the book, but this time in where we are in life, I think it's really, really important because we are, as some people have commented in, getting burned out, doing too much, feeling really overwhelmed with all of the breaking news and social media and our connection to our phones. Like our world has gotten so noisy that and we are just naturally getting sucked right into it, and it's on top of all of our other daily obligations and trying to live our lives. And I really wanted to offer a new approach to self-help that takes the shame and blame off of the reader, which I know for me growing up, a lot of the self-help books I read, I just felt terrible afterwards because I felt like I didn't have the discipline or the will or whatever it was to make it work, but they weren't written for me. And so I wanted to write this book for people who already have very full lives and who want to take better care of themselves and slow down and rethink how they want to live their lives. And so that is really where Gentle came from.
That is so refreshing. And I would love for you to tell us your definition of gentle. Like, what does that mean to you? And what is it in the book that defines gentle for all of us?
Yeah, I mean, gentle is how I take care of myself. It is the most loving thing I can do for myself is to be gentle and to connect with the gentle me. And the book has lots of practical offerings to help people connect with what I call the gentle you. And I always, when I think of that, I always want to put my hand on my heart, like, this is the gentle me. And she is open and wants to learn and wants to feel good, but it took me a long time to hear her at all because of this noise that's always going on in our lives. We get so busy and so overwhelmed, and we can't connect with ourselves. So these practices that I'm offering will help you even if you're in a state of illness, chronic illness, or feeling bad in other ways, really help you to make progress and not have to wait until this magical time when we think everything will calm down and be perfect and then we can make a change. In my experience, I've just never encountered that.
I mean, it's yes. So someone in the chat said that they were burned out and it's starting to impact their health, but it was a health scare for you that changed your world pretty dramatically. Will you share your story?
Yeah, of course. So in 2006, I was training for the what's called the MS 150, and it's a cycling event here in Salt Lake City to raise money for multiple sclerosis because my boss had MS. And I was training for that. I was doing a little bit of travel. I was also on wild deadlines at work, raising a daughter, like managing my family, doing all the things that we all love to do in our lives. There's just always one more thing, one more thing, one more thing. And I thought that was just adulting, and I didn't feel good. I started to have a lot of like weird symptoms like tingling in my face and numbness in my hands. I got a really bad spell of vertigo to the point where I was just like holding on to the walls. And I started to be tested for what in the world this could be. And ironically, I missed the MS ride. And soon after that ride, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis myself. And so
Ironic in so many ways, right?
yeah, ironic and really, really scary, and
Scary.
once I got through that initial, like, "Oh my gosh, I don't know what to do," I started researching, how to live well with MS. Were people living well with MS? What were they doing? What was their secret? And the thing that I kept coming across in both, um, like, research-based articles and anecdotal stories is that reducing stress really helped to reduce relapses, and my life was so stressful, and I just started eliminating stress. I didn't think of it as simplicity at first. I just knew that I had to get rid of this stress. It really was literally killing me.
What were some of the other things that you changed immediately following the diagnosis?
Yeah, so I looked at the things that were the most stressful in my life. I experimented with different diet changes. I started to pay off my debt. I was in a lot of debt, and I kind of thought I would just always be in debt, and realized that that was just weighing on me so heavily that it was time to do what it took to pay that off. And while we were paying all of our debt, we stopped shopping as much and bringing things in. And it was then that I got to take a close look at my clutter and stuff and realized how it was always reminding me of that debt, of my like discontent that I always needed more stuff to feel better. And so we started really decluttering. And I mean, it took years for us to become debt free and clutter free. But those tiny steps that we took turned into these big changes. And eventually we were debt free. We had empty rooms in our house. And we ended up downsizing to an apartment that was half the size of our house. Like all of these great things followed. It was one thing after the other. And I continue to simplify my life even now, I mean, almost 20 years later from my diagnosis, and really pay attention to my pace of life. I also have a great neurologist and medical team, and use traditional MS therapies, but I think that in combination with my simplicity efforts have really made such a huge difference, not just for MS, but my overall health. I haven't had a relapse since 2008. I am regularly scanned, MRI scans, and I haven't had any new progression, MS progression since then. So I feel really grateful that I got that wake up call.
Courtney, that is such a profound story on so many levels, from the depth of darkness to this beauty that you have for yourself, and now that you're sharing with all of us. Thank you so much for sharing your
Oh my gosh,
experience.
it's my
We'd
pleasure.
like to we'd like to ask the audience if you would write down. I asked you to have a pen and paper ready. If you have had a wake up call yourself, and from the tiniest whisper to the louder calls. And Courtney, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think that while MS was certainly this wake up call that finally did it for me, prior to that, I had all these little wake up calls, like, just thoughts in my head that were like, this is too much, or I can't do it like this anymore, or I'm overwhelmed, I'm stressed out, I'm burned out, I don't like this. But I was so busy that I couldn't answer those wake up calls. And so I just kept really quieting them down by getting even busier in my life, because if I was real busy, I wouldn't have time to hear them, and I certainly wouldn't have time to do anything about it. So it took me quite a long time to get to a place where, and it wasn't because now I was in a situation where it was easier for me to react to the wake up call. It was just like, I can't do this anymore. This is it. This is the call. And so, um, I think that if you're getting those quieter calls from inside of you that are saying things aren't working, or I don't feel well, or I need to rest, really pay attention to that and give yourself permission to listen. And once you really start to listen, it's hard not to respond.
And it's so important to remember to listen to our bodies, because many times our bodies know before we do intellectually that there's something going on. And I think I may have shared this with you, Courtney, in one of our calls, but early on in my career, I was in and out of the hospital 4 times in 2 years. And, I look back now and realize it was the stress of this domineering boss that I had, that I did not know how to work with or be with and take care of myself on a daily basis with this person, and overpowering person with me, and my body was just like crying out. I left that job, I quit, and I haven't been in the hospital since. And
Wow.
it's just so interesting when you think that, if we need to tune into our bodies and listen to what's happening and making the changes that you're talking about in order to have a more beautiful life. So Christy says, I couldn't do it anymore either. I recently had anxiety and panic attacks that resulted in my taking my current LOA from work, and is now leading me to simplify, and live a life of less stress. Um, and Laura, that is exactly what happened to me. I pushed myself too hard past all of those signals. Why is it that we don't listen to those signals, Courtney? It's like, why do we feel that we have to really go down, down, down before we actually go, oh, I need to do something here. But we don't need to wait that long. And I think that's the most important point here.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of reasons. I think one of the things that we all do is we measure our self worth based on what we accomplish or contribute. And we get so tied into that that our measuring system is like based solely on how much we get done off our to-do lists, what our achievements are, what other people think about what our achievements are and what we got crossed off of our to-do list. And within that broken measuring system, it will never be enough. you will just have to keep doing and doing and doing. And so I think really breaking away from that, even if it's an experiment and you're doing it short term to really assess your value and understand that you're you are worthy without doing one more thing. There's no question about it. And that's why I think that when we do get sick, we try to push through and we keep working and we keep doing the things because we don't want to stop contributing on some level, because that's going to say something negative about us. But we have to think about who we're trying to prove this to. Is it ourselves or other people? And what are we willing to compromise about our lives and our health and our relationships in this pursuit of more at all costs?
So powerful. And it's just so powerful. It kind of takes my breath away because we're just, as a society, we're not tuned in to this type of belief system, Courtney, as you well know. And one thing I want to mention is that if we as women listen to our intuitive senses more, that maybe we would make change faster. I recently had an experience with a client. Many of you know I have a communications company here in Seattle. And we had this client that was being really difficult, and it was just kind of eating at me. They were our largest client, and I finally realized that it was eating me up so much in a short amount of time that I ended up quitting. And it was a big risk, financially, but from a stress perspective, from taking care perspective, it was the right thing to do, not just for me, but for my entire team. And and I didn't want to go back to that point where I was in and out of the hospital, so many times in a short amount of time because I could feel that I was getting there.
Yeah.
So let's see, Dawn says, I'm struggling with painful joints at the moment. I'm also overweight with high blood pressure. I'm on the cusp of retiring, but I'm still rushing around like a mad woman. What kind of advice would you give to Dawn?
I work with a lot of women who they imagine that they're going to slow down and take care when they get there, wherever there is. So when they retire or when they make a certain amount or when this thing is going right in their life. And I've talked to those women once they get there and they're still not there. They then want to get somewhere else. And so all I would say is that all we ever really have is this time right now. We have here, we're here, and we have to be willing to make sometimes challenging decisions for ourselves and for our health. And just remember that it's not always like the choice between A or B. There's a lot of nuance in the decisions that we're making. And I think there are a lot of options that we forget to consider because we're only like, I have to stay in my job for the next 5 years and feel miserable. Um, or I have to quit now and then I am just going to ruin my life. What's in between? I would really start to be thinking about that and definitely like getting advice from professionals that you trust about what might be helpful.
I love that. Thank you. So your book is so powerful, Courtney. It's just a beautiful look at how much I've gone through it so many times already and underlined and dog-eared and all of this. But so you broke this out into three different sections: rest, less, and rise. I want to talk about each of those different sections as kind of a workshop. So, we can't save rest for when we are sick or tired. We need it now. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, let me first say that this rest, less, and rise are really the seasons of gentle. And so you may work through them in any order you want, but I would invite you to consider rest first and putting rest first. Tell me again the question, please.
Um, we can't save rest for when we're sick or tired. We need it
Right.
now, right
Yeah,
now.
we love to save rest for when we get it all done. And often that means like staying up late because you're trying to get done one more thing, one more thing. And if we save rest until we get everything done, we are going to be sick and tired. There's no way around that. It will come for all of us. But if we start to learn how to rest consistently on a regular basis, we have a better chance of feeling good. And the only thing we're compromising potentially is getting fewer things done. But I also think that is something we kind of make up, because what happens is we end up with more energy, more consistent focus. And not that the purpose of resting is to get more things done, but that is often what happens. Like things, you can get things done with less effort if you're well rested. And so just think about that from a practical perspective, but also how good does rest feel just for the sake of rest?
I was telling Courtney before we got on today that since I've read her book, I've been practicing rest because I usually go, go, go. And even if I need 5 minutes just to close my eyes, I will go and do that during the day now. Or before we turn off the lights, I'll just lie there and kind of meditate. And it has been, I'm feeling something different in my body because of taking those moments. And I want to thank you for that, Courtney. It's been a beautiful exploration that I want to continue and would love to hear, yeah, from the audience when you rest. I want you to write to me and tell us, and I'll share it with Courtney about your experience as well. But I think one of the things, the questions that you had that's so pertinent to this conversation is what stands in the way of you and rest? What is it that stands in our way? I mean, all of those things that you talked about, but why do we not take that time? And then, like I said, I lay down, to take a little rest. But if you had an extra hour every day to rest, how would you rest? Like, what would be some of the examples that you would give, Courtney?
Well, I love this question, and I'd love to hear what people think about this. Like, how would you rest? Because what I've learned in my research for this book is that resting isn't just laying down. We can find restful activities that really work for us. We know what settles our nervous system and what calms us and fuels us. I mean, for me, meditation is a big one, like twice a day for 20 minutes. Um, I am that is my rest. And also like going for a walk without my phone, very restful. Um, Talking to my sister in the mornings is really restful for me. So there's a lot of different things, like what soothes you? Going in my backyard and laying down and reading a book. Oh my gosh, rest heaven. It's really figuring that out for yourself. And I have a good friend who is um extrovert times 10, and I'm probably introvert times 10. And she and I were talking about this, and she said, "Oh my gosh, what I need when I need rest is to get with a bunch of people and connect." And I never thought of connecting as being restful, but for her it is. And so it's just like, what is it for you that feels restful? I mean, look, sometimes it's throwing on Gilmore Girls and watching a half hour of television. I don't mind that. I mean, but instead, we find it so hard to break away from this notion of productivity that we just keep going and going and going. And at some point, we're going not at our best or even close.
And we have some shares here. I spend time out in nature and with the horses, reading and walking. I love, for me, the walking out in nature without the phone. I did that with the dogs this morning. It's just such a beautiful time to listen to the birds. It's just so amazing. And but you also talk about, in addition to rest, like what is your adult bedtime, Courtney? Let's talk about that.
So I have an alarm on my phone that goes off at about 8:25 as a reminder, like, here comes your bedtime. And so I'm getting up anywhere from right then until about 10 minutes later to go to bed. And I like to be in bed long before 9 so that I can be sound asleep by maybe quarter past 9, 9:30 at the latest, because I do wake up in the middle of the night usually, and I wanna fall back asleep easily, and then even if I were to stay up really late, I'll still wake up at 5 or 5:30 in the morning, so I can't risk that. I have to be in bed early, and I got to a point where I just realized that I didn't need to get anything else done after usually about after 7, like, I'm done doing things. So, this is
That's such
not
a
the time
gift to
to ask me for a
yourself.
favor. I'm not doing things after 7. My phone is in do not disturb by then, and that's it. It's just rest until sleep.
I love that. And I just have to show everybody this. A friend gave me this last night. In bed by nine socks. I don't know if you can see that, but this is so true for me too, because I'm an early bird as well. And it's always been a joke that I go to bed early, but but the rest beforehand is the key, Courtney, to what you're talking about here. And what are some tiny steps? You talk about guilt-free permission slips to rest. What are those?
Well, we love to feel guilty about resting and doing nothing, and then we spend the whole time while we're doing nothing or resting feeling bad about it, and I always think, like, feeling guilty for taking care of yourself is not taking care of yourself. You're just shamey blamey that whole time. It's not restorative in any way. So, guilt-free permission slips, I like to think of that we can give to ourselves, we can give to each other to take care. And so, a guilt-free permission slip would be to hang a do not disturb sign on your door when you're resting. If you want to have some quiet time and you live with other people who might um not understand that unless you explain it and hang up the sign. So, things like that, just really kind of have fun with it, or permission to take 5 or 10 minutes in the middle of the day and do what's best for you instead of pushing through your next work project.
Go pick some flowers during the day. I'm going to do that today. Okay, let's switch gears and talk about less is definitely more. And
Great. Yeah, that's the second
I think
section.
your background is just perfect. It's just so simple and beautiful. And so you talk a lot about less is more and more and more and more. And how you talked a little bit about getting rid of a lot of things, but how what kind of difference does that make in your life to have less?
Oh my gosh. I mean, we have so much to manage in our lives that wherever I can reduce that, I want to, because more stuff means more cleaning, more organizing, more managing. And I have enough to manage. I don't need to worry about extra stuff to ensure and take care of. I want to have the things that I use and the things that make me smile, and the rest I just really don't care about.
Can you suggest making a list of of stressful items in your life? Like, what did that look like for you initially, and then for the audience to consider?
Yeah, I think it's really helpful to make this list because so often when we want to do something big, like simplify our lives, we go after all of it at the same time. And then 30 days later, we're exhausted and right back where we started. And we probably have to do some shopping to make ourselves feel better. So instead, I think it's really smart to make a list of the things and pick one and then break that one thing down into teeny tiny steps. So, what are the most stressful things in your life? I mean, for me, um, it was debt, it was time management, it was clutter, work certainly was very stressful. And it doesn't mean that these things go away overnight, but it means that's your focus. That's the one thing you're going to focus on until it really feels like the new normal. And then you can start focusing on something else.
How long, just a quick question, in your journey, how long did it take you to feel like you were making significant enough changes to feel it in your body and soul? Was it a
I,
couple of years? Was it
oh,
immediate?
it was only a few months before I
Okay.
felt like some bit of lightness and relief. And it wasn't that we had even started decluttering by then, but because I was finally paying attention, I was able to give myself so much more grace. And I didn't, when I was resting, I wasn't saying like, this is unproductive or you're lazy or anything like that. What I was saying to myself is, I'm healing, I'm taking care. And that made it so that even before we made any significant changes, I was feeling better. And then of course, I think I said it was about 3 years of clearing out debt and clutter. And then things really lightened up. But even now, I mean, 20 years later, 15 years later, I was still making changes to simplify, to remove stress from my life. Um, 6 years ago, I stopped drinking any alcohol. I never thought that that would happen. I always thought I would be enjoying a glass of wine at the end of the day or on the weekend or when we travel. And when I really took a good look at it, I realized it was adding more stress than joy.
I would add to that, having been looking at that for the last 4 months, but that's another story. But so
That's
you
a call
talk,
for another day.
yeah, that's a call for another day. Um, so you talk about being technology free for 24 hours. What is the invitation there for us?
Oh my gosh. Well, first I'll just say it's a dream. It's so lovely and it's something that I fight so hard every time. But I think having breaks, like for instance, my phone's on do not disturb by 7 at night, and I don't start my day on my phone, but I work online. I mean, I'm online a lot. And so to have a day off a week, which I don't do every week, but I really aim to whenever I can, to go like Saturday afternoon until Monday morning, for instance, which I know is more than 24 hours. But this really interesting thing happens in that the first few hours, you're like, oh my gosh, is the internet okay without me? Is everybody okay out there? What's going on? Did I get an email? And then by the end of the 24 hours, I don't want to go back. Like, I want to lose my phone and get a flip phone. It's really interesting how quickly the shift happens. And it happens because you're present for your life and things are slowing down. You're not like like me obsessively checking the weather. I mean, how many times do I have to check the weather in a day? But I've probably checked it 2 or 3 times today already. Yet, if you asked me what the weather was going to be tomorrow, I have no idea. So it's just this compulsion, whether it's social media or the weather or the news, we're like checking, checking, checking because we get some kind of dopamine. So it's really finding that dopamine hit in other things.
And Christy just said that's totally me. So this is a tiny step would be to embrace the pause. And let's talk about that moment of yes or no.
Yeah, if especially if like 24 hours off the internet feels like too much at first, start with smaller blocks of time and implement this idea of a pause. So before you pick your phone up to look at it, pause. Help yourself pause by putting a little bit of friction between you and your phone, like a hair tie or rubber band around it so you can't do that immediate swipe up, or put a post-it note on your phone so it reminds you like there's no reason for you to pick me up right now. What are you looking for? Uh, Pause before you add to cart. So if you're online and you're like, things are easily going into your cart off social media, they love to make that as easy as possible. Give it a minute, give it a week, give it just pause as long as you can, because almost always these compulsions or desires pass. But it's so easy to get that quick hit. And we're so used to the immediacy of relief that we stress ourselves out by seeking that consistently.
I like that invitation a lot. I have a pause of 24 hours before I respond to something difficult. but I would like to invite myself to have that 24-hour pause before I hit purchase or those things that you're talking about just now. Think about that more. And then somebody emailed or texted us behind the scenes here and says that's totally me. I know all things about the weather. And then Dawn said, I've got a daily time limit on my social media. I'm at 45 minutes this week, which is it's Wednesday already. That's amazing. I'll applaud
Perfect.
you for that, Dawn. Good job. And yeah, people do get upset about, you not responding right away, but that's their problem. That's not yours. So,
Do they?
just right.
I don't know who's getting so upset. I'm not really seeing that anymore. I think we kind of understand that we're all a little burdened. We all have too many inboxes, between social media and email. And I mean, I feel like you just need to take the time that you need to take. And that, like, we just can't pressure ourselves into this immediacy anymore. Because then we're
That's
training
killing us.
people that is saying we can respond. Well, we're here for you all the time. And if we're there for everybody else all the time, we're never there for ourselves.
And this is really about what this conversation about is self-care so you don't get sick and don't have those like huge wake-up calls where it's a dramatic shift in your life. So
Yeah.
let's
I was just going to say, not only so you don't feel sick, but so you can feel really good. I mean,
good.
we
Let's switch that language.
Yeah, like I want to feel really good.
Mhm.
And I know there's some things that get in the way of that. Poor sleep makes me feel bad. Lots of drama makes me feel bad. Lots of social media makes me feel bad. So once I identify the things that make me feel like crap, I'm going to stop doing them and look at the things that make me feel really good.
Let's all feel really good. That's such an incredible invitation. Okay, let's talk about rise. So when we feel really good, that we can actually rise. And gentle doesn't mean you have to sacrifice your hopes and your dreams, right?
Yeah, I hope not.
Yeah. So how do you like to talk about rise and what does that mean to you?
So I think Rise it's the third season of Gentle, and I really wanted to include it, especially for the high achievers who I think tune out to this kind of rest messaging because they think I'm never going to be able to do what I want to do if I'm always just resting and laying around. But that's not what this is about at all. I think that this kind of apathy comes over us when we're exhausted and overwhelmed. And it's really hard to make a difference in the things that we care about and the things that we do want to achieve. It's harder to make progress. And so by resting and really aligning with our personal time and energy availability, and then using that less season to remove all of the things that hold us back, frankly, then when it's time to rise into a creative project or supporting a cause that you're really passionate about or starting a new company, whatever it is, traveling the world, anything, you can rise into this place from solid ground because you've created this ground, this platform, this gentle space where you know you can always come back to. And to that end, I would just say that these seasons are not a one and done. It's kind of like exercising. If you go to the gym once and that's it, like you're not going to build strength if that's how you're building strength. And just like this, there are going to be things that come along that bring you back to that rest or less section, and you have to take a break. It happened to me several times while writing the book. And I wrote about those instances in the book just to say we're not after perfection here, but we're after a ritual and a practical techniques that we can use to get back to basics in our lives so then we can rise again.
Love that. And so simple pleasures can be anything from walking in nature, taking a hike, doing some creative project. And we'd love to hear from our audience. What are some simple pleasures that you enjoy or bring you joy on a daily basis? I would say for me, as we're hearing from our audience, walking the dogs every day, listen to the birds chirping. Like I walk around our little local lake here in Seattle called Green Lake, and I never wear earbuds or anything because I want to hear nature and I want to be in that awe and wonder state of just experiencing the season or the day and what's magical right then. Like yesterday on Earth Day, Courtney, there's this little log that's there year round. And about this time of year, the turtles start coming up.
Oh,
And
cute.
yesterday, there was a turtle and a duck, this unlikely, uncommon pair that were there. And it just brought so much joy. But it was that one moment, that, I was able to capture. But it is the simple pleasures. So Laura said, preparing healthy food, art therapy, hanging out with my animals, sitting out in nature, walking in nature and kayaking. And Alyssa said, opening the blinds, sitting in the dark and let the light come in from the outside with my coffee.
Wow. I love
Oh,
that. And this is similar to
beautiful.
rest. Like, don't bribe yourself with simple pleasures. Give them to yourself first. We're all adults. We can eat dessert first if we want. We can romanticize our morning coffee, which I do every single day. We can find joy in the things that we're already experiencing just by giving them that kind of treatment and attention. Uh, and we don't have to save them for later. We can do them first. So before I start something new, I am going to start with a simple pleasure instead of the old me, which would be like, once you accomplish this big goal, then you can enjoy something in your life. But no, I'm going to enjoy my life first.
And joy is all around us if we take time to experience it or to acknowledge it. And, there's other beautiful things here. Doing my art doodles, I'm working on a novel, sitting on the deck absorbing vitamin D, going to the marina, dessert first all day, every day. I have
Love
chocolate
it.
every day for either breakfast or lunch. So I'm totally there with you. Walking a dog on a beautiful mountain trail where I enjoy the soup of sounds of nature, bird songs, mountain stream. Love enjoying life first. I love the idea, give it to yourself first. And that's really what this is about, is carving out time for yourself and taking care of self and putting you first and not everybody else. Um, so one of the things that we talked about is consider what you thought a grown-up was supposed to be and how you actually want to show up for your adult life. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I think so often in my life, I was comparing where I was to where I thought grown up Courtney was supposed to be. And I think we pull in messages from all around us and from our childhood and from our the people around us, from social media, from everywhere about what a grown up is supposed to be and what a successful grown up life looks like. And I was so far off track for a long time, and I kept comparing it and thinking I should be to that imaginary there that I talked about earlier. And as I was simplifying and really thinking about what mattered to me and what I wanted my life to be like, I realized it wasn't in these regular trappings of expensive cars or homes or giant closets or um, prestigious jobs. Like it was none of those things that really did it for me. Those were just the things that looked like that was successful. And so I had to redefine what success was for me. And I think if you do that for yourself, you might find that you can experience what you want to experience without the things that you don't even really want.
It really does come down to how you want to feel and how you want to be in the world. And it's not the stuff that surrounds you. Think about how many things are just in cupboards all over the, your house that are meaningless and you never use them. Or, there's this line about, or this statistic about clothing. Like we wear 20% of the clothing in our closet. 20%. It's like we have all this stuff. So this was, there's a local company here, Courtney, that rents clothes. And it's like
Mm.
renting clothes makes so much sense, right? It's called Envoi. It's woman owned here in Seattle. But those kind of decisions make a big difference in how you show up. And I think we're so disconnected on how we want to feel because society has been so big in these ideas of success and professionalism and, you know, getting up the corporate ladder. It's like, okay, if we come back to ourselves, being with friends and family, having creativity in your life or dog spirits or cat spirits, it's so a question for our audience is ask yourself what you want before you get input from others around you or society at large, and what would those be? So, well, how would you answer that, Courtney? And maybe some folks will share in the chat.
Yeah, well, just to expand on this, I think when we think about what we want, so often we're like doing what we think our families want us to want, or our friends want us to want, or like I said, like society wants us to want. But what do you want? And by asking that question of yourself and really thinking about it and considering it, you can then seek out the support around that you need. I ask myself that question often because there are ways that I could be growing my business and hiring more people and having more subscribers and doing more. And I keep thinking like, but to what end? Like, to what end am I doing this? Is that what I want? Do I want to travel more? Do I want to go do more speaking engagements? And really, every time I get in my backyard with a coffee and a book, I'm like, no, this is what I want. So, is there a way that I can do my work without feeling like I have to keep growing and growing and growing? And yeah, there is. Like, I just post less.
That's so good.
Uh, for starters, it's always, it kind of comes back to that never enough. Like, where do you draw the line? Um, and for me, that's, I'm not working at night. I'm not working on weekends. If I did, could I grow more? Probably. But what would I sacrifice? And I don't want to sacrifice that.
And spending time in the evening too with your partner or your pets is so important. And giving them the quality of you showing up as your full self is so important. And my partner actually, we talk about that, and he and I, um, feel that that time is like critical for our long-term success.
Yeah, of course.
So
And even just for yourself, like if we're consistently giving our all the time, there's nothing left for us. So I don't give my all or do my best pretty consistently. Like I like to pull back 10 or 20%. It's still good enough. And I have something left for me.
what are some closing thoughts for our audience today?
Ooh, closing thoughts. I mean, I'm happy, obviously, to answer any questions. And if you think of things that you're curious about later, you're always welcome to reach out to me. My email is support@bemorewithless.com. Um, but I think my closing thoughts would be to think about how just for today, you might be your gentlest self. Like, what is the gentlest thing you can do for you without apology or explanation? Like, just for you. And you'll probably find it's the tiniest, simplest thing. But I think that once we get into the practice of asking that question and giving it to ourselves, we're on that path of prioritizing our own well-being.
Well, Courtney, congratulations on your beautiful
Thank
book,
you.
Gentle. I'm so happy for you and your success in your mission to help people have less and enjoy their life more. So it's gentle, rest more, stress less, and live the life you actually want. I can't tell you how much this has impacted me. I'm resting more, I'm buying less, and I'm much more aware of how I want my life to be moving forward. So, Courtney, thank you so much for joining us. I'm so grateful that you're here. And for all of you from Rebel 11, thank you for being here today. And we look forward to seeing you here in Seattle at some upcoming local events and online here and with other global retreats around the globe. Thank you so much. And Courtney, have a beautiful day and the rest of the week. And I will look forward to keeping in touch.
Thank you so much. Thanks everybody for being here. I loved
Thank
connecting
you.
with you.
Thank you so much.